Neopets, a remnant of a bygone internet age. And by bygone, I really do mean gone. Because, guys, Neopets is older than I am. Which means, if you played Neopets, then you're probably like 40. Okay, but seriously, bygone definitely does not mean bad. Neopets is a remnant of an age that a lot of people miss, and for good reason. Nowadays, the internet is centralized into corporate platforms controlled by some of the worst people on the planet. And while I'm not gonna pretend like the old internet was some bastion of great morality, definitely was better than the hellscape we have today. And Neopets is a great little part of that. It was a charming pet collector where you could build a menagerie of colorful, cartoony companions and care for all their needs. And when you failed to care for their needs, you felt incredible guilt as you left your Neopet to rot in the hellscape of your online world. People played minigames with their pets, shared fan fiction of their pets, made whole websites about pets that they wanted to adopt. It was a crazy experience, and there's a reason why many people have nostalgia for Neopets. But there are fans that don't just have nostalgia, they still actively play. Neopets still has a very active fan base. And while it's definitely left its heyday behind, there is still absolutely a fandom behind this game. And that fandom was about to get a new game. Not a video game, Neopets put those out pretty regularly, but no, something brand new to the series, taken from a genre that is quite old. Neopets was getting a tabletop role-playing game. This would not be developed by the official Neopets development team. No, this would be developed by a third party called Geekify. Though this would be an official Neopets product. They were given the license by the Neopets team and everything. But that license was taken away midway through development. When the game was in beta, the Neopets team announced that they would be stripping Geekify the Neopets license, effectively killing the Neopets TTRPG and relegating hundreds of thousands of backer funds to the void. What happened? Why would the Neopets team so callously cancel something that seemingly was so far in development? Well, let's just say it wasn't without reason. Ladies and gentlemen, and all in between, this is one of the most incompetent development cycles I have ever seen in my life. We've got homophobia, stolen content. We even have a developer putting out a cry for help on the official TTRPG beta. Oh, this is going to be something. Without further ado, my friends, what the hell happened?
Tried really hard to have cool ideas, have cool mechanics in there, and I'm very sorry that it ended up as a 5th edition clone.
I think I echo the feelings of most when I say I am not interested in this. This is just so disappointing.
Okay, I don't think I need to explain Neopets any more than I already have. Cartoony, cozy pet collector. Simple enough, right? Well, for those of you who, like me, didn't play Neopets much or at all, check out the footage on screen because I really want you to absorb the vibe of Neopets. This is a cutesy comfort game. Even for adult fans who are playing this now, years after its heyday, they still enjoy it for this vibe. Neopets doesn't need to be dark or edgy or mature. The cutesy, bright pastel colors are what people want and expect from this game. It airs more on the side of Stardew Valley than on the side of, like, Doom. Which should be obvious. I know that for those of you watching who enjoy Neopets, or those of you watching with an IQ above room temperature, you're probably looking at me like I'm an idiot for explaining this to you, but apparently there are people in this world who don't get this. Now, by complete coincidence, I'm going to use that segue to move on to talking about Geekify, developers of this tabletop role-playing game. If you don't know who Geekify is, here is their description from their website. An invention studio and merch-making company just outside of Boulder, creating products for companies of all sizes and helping bring ideas to life. Invention Studio. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that they are a generic nerd merch brand. tarot cards, nerd pins, leather-bound notebooks, the kind of stuff that you see getting resold en masse on convention floors. That is what Geekify makes. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, how are they connected with Neopets? Well, it's through those aforementioned tarot cards. They made the official Neopets tarot card deck. They may have made some other Neopets product, but any record of those products, as well as any record of those tarot cards, have been obliterated from their website. If you look for Neopets merch on Geekify now, you'll come up with a fat goose egg. I wonder why that is. Is this foreshadowing for later? Speaking of foreshadowing, I want to put out another little piece of information. That is that all that aforementioned merch doesn't have much to do with, developing a tabletop role-playing game. TTRPGs are definitely simpler to make than a AAA video game, but it's still game design. You still need to understand the principles of it, and you should still have some experienced people editing and developing this project. But despite that major red flag, many Neopians leapt with joy when a Neopets TTRPG was announced on the Geekify website. From the creators of the Neopets Tarot deck comes an adventure of epic proportions, blending the rich history, lore, and characters of Neopets with the familiar gaming style of TTRPGs. We're excited to announce an upcoming TTRPG set in the world of Neopia. This project will launch on Kickstarter soon, so don't miss out on the news when it's ready to launch in 2024. Okay, yeah, people did not miss it. Thousands rushed to the Kickstarter to buy these books. But, what specifically were they buying? What kind of game is this? Well, if you're unaware of how TTRPGs work, there are many different tabletop systems. Dungeons & Dragons, Draw Steel, Call Cthulhu. These are all their own unique systems with their own unique mechanics. Neopets would be adding to that with its own brand new system with unique mechanics. Alongside that, you'd be buying 2 books. First, the official rules to explain how this new game works, and second, an adventure to get you started in the world of Neopia, the fall of fairyland. Apparently, that's something in Neopets lore. No, I'm not explaining Neopets lore on my tea and drama channel, okay? I will only subject myself to so much here. Now, making a brand new game is a bit of a risky endeavor, but I understand why they did this. I mean, existing systems, especially the popular ones, are mostly epic fantasy or horror-based systems. That definitely does not fit the cozy, comforting vibes of Neopets. And on their website, they announced many cool mechanics that fit that cozy vibe. They have puzzles, mini-games. Pacifism is actually a full-fledged section in their game design document that they claim would be a major part of this brand new RPG. And to be frank, this kind of cozy tabletop game, it is nothing new, especially during the pandemic when people were obsessed with making everything cozy. TTRPGs had plenty of cozy entries made, and while none of these caught on like Daggerheart did, these did gain some popularity and definitely have their own audience. The brand of Neopets could bring this subgenre of TTRPGs to the forefront, and frankly, it is a great fit for the vibe that Neopets has cultivated. So, with the Kickstarter made, it seems like everything is going great. Where's the part where everything goes wrong? Today's episode is sponsored by CZEPEKU. And yeah, I know. You know what CZEPEKU is if you guys have been on this channel. But guys, CZEPEKU is probably the best bargain you could get in the entire tabletop role-playing game industry. I mean, what DM doesn't need maps, tokens, and gorgeous artwork to illustrate their D&D games? CZEPEKU provides all of that. Thousands upon thousands of maps, wallpapers, and tokens, many of which can be customized to fit your exact needs. In an industry that's rapidly getting filled with AI-generated scams with slop maps and slop tokens, you don't need to worry about that with CZEPEKU. Everything here is handcrafted by talented human artists that work diligently to provide everything you need for your TTRPG game. Seriously, if you're not already subscribed, I have no idea what you're waiting for. If you guys are interested, then you can head down to the description down below or the pinned comment where you will find the CZEPEKU Sci-Fi and Fantasy bundles. Thank you so much, CZEPEKU, for sponsoring today's episode. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Without further ado, back to the video. Well, there were were some troubling signs immediately after the funding. After getting 1,000% funded, the project was fairly quiet. They opened up a Discord server and had some minor development updates, but for the most part, Neopians weren't getting much from Geekify until mid-2025. They announced that they would be doing a closed alpha. Obviously, the fact that this was closed meant that your average fan was not gaining access, but at least it was a sign that development was moving forward in some way. But still, if I were a fan, I'd be sweating a bit. There were some formatted example pages, but these weren't giving away much about what this actual game would be. It's a lot of lore, a lot of flavor on the different Neopet player species, with some bare bones mechanics, but bare bones is doing a lot of the emphasis on that sentence. We're still not getting much about what the actual gameplay would be like. We don't even know if this will be a D20 system or a D12 system or a D6 dice pool system. We know nothing. When it comes to the pacifism puzzles and mini games, we don't even know how those would work. They were just generally brought up with no specifics. I remember when my favorite TTRPG Draw Steel was being announced, they didn't even know the name at first, but we were pretty freaking clear on what kind of game this would be, a 4th edition 2.0 of sorts that had a focus on tactics. Hell, the team at MCDM was showing off an early version of the Tactician class, as well as a Necromancer enemy to serve as an example of what players would be fighting. Was it the full system? Absolutely not, but we saw how development was moving forward, and that was during the Kickstarter. This with Neopets, this is months later, and this is all fans are getting? But the fears of slacking development would actually be quickly assuaded, because months later, in early 2026, just last month actually, in February, the Neopets TTRPG team announced that they were doing an open beta. Yeah, in only a few months, they went from closed alpha, don't pay attention to what we're doing, to a full open beta for fans to participate in. Now, I do admire getting content done that fast, but dang, that is a really, really quick turnaround time, especially since beta alludes that they're very, very close to releasing this thing. At long last, we're ready to open things up to you guys for some playtesting and experimenting, and give you the first hands-on look at the gaming experience the TTRPG book will offer. This is a simplified subset of rules, mechanics, and descriptions, and a mini module to play around with. You are now cordially invited to the Neopets tabletop role-playing game beta test. Very exciting. Had an invitation and everything. So how did it go? Well, it went really, really bad. Now look, I playtested every single version of Draw Steel. I obsessively read every Unearthed Arcana when D&D 2024 was being developed. I've seen work in progress TTRPGs. I have offered criticism of work in progress TTRPGs. But this takes work in progress to another level entirely. Okay, I'm going to start here by describing some of the mechanics that are present within the Neopets TTRPG. You might find them a little bit familiar. This game primarily uses D20s to determine your skill checks. In fact, it uses the full range of dice that you can find in your average set. It also has advantage and disadvantage. The game has armor class. The game has skill checks with skills such as athletics, acrobatics, investigation, perception. The game has ability modifiers that are nonsensically tied to ability scores that should have been removed from the game years ago. The game has 6-second combat rounds with initiative that's determined at random. The spells in the game include stuff like Lightning Bolt and Vicious Mockery. And yeah, if you play Dungeons & Dragons, this is very familiar, because this is literally D&D 5e. They just copy-pasted D&D 5e and called it a new system. Now, to be clear, there are some changes made to D&D 5e to differentiate it, but some of these changes are so minor that they err on the side of comedy. Like, seriously, guys, changing hold person to hold Neopet is not hiding anything. We can still tell. Traits like dark vision, tremor sense, and true sight all appear. Characters can have advantage and disadvantage, but these now stack. We have opportunity attacks and grappling, bloody creatures and death saving throws, and even references to a material realm when there is no reference to such in the original Neopets game. Where Neopets does diverge from D&D, it does so in complex and often confusing ways. All skills have a passive version that can be privately checked by the DM, and every NPC gets a full character sheet, as complex as those given to player characters. That adds a lot of bookkeeping. As that article alludes to, there are some custom mechanics in this book, but the custom mechanics that are present are borderline nonsensical and do nothing to assuage the worries this was developed by a group of amateurs. I'm struggling on this one. Defense and endurance are separate stats, but magic has to cover all social and intellectual powers in one. There's no skill for lying, but stealth and sleight of hand, they're separate. The bulk of the game's mechanics are about hitting, damage, and movement on a tactical battle map. Not exactly what comes to mind when I think of a pet care simulator that I played for 20 odd years. Currently, the perks just read, "This work has not been paid for by John Taylor of Geekify." We'll be hearing about John Taylor of Geekify a lot more in a future chapter. Now, you might be thinking at this point, why, oh why, would they rip off Dungeons and Dragons? Like, okay, if you promise your fans a fully custom Neopets TTRPG, then, you know, I think you should make your own TTRPG and not rip off an existing one. But at the same time, if you're gonna rip off an existing one, can you at least rip off one that makes sense? D&D 5th edition has its roots in war gaming. That's where its focus is. The mechanics primarily focus around combat. The subclasses almost all have combat exclusive features. The vast majority of the spells and abilities all are meant to be used after you roll initiative. That's why I played it before I found other better war games to play. But in any case, look, the point is, it's pretty dang separate from the cozy vibes of Neopets. It seems like, at least on the surface, this is a team who barely knows anything about TTRPGs outside of maybe watching Critical Role and playing Baldur's Gate 3. If only someone could have predicted this in an earlier section of this video. What could we have expected from the Invention Studio? But yeah, things were looking bad. Fans were furious about how bare bones this game was. For some reason, they decided it was a really good idea to allow fans to just openly comment on the Google Doc, which led to some truly hilarious reactions and angry outbursts that can just be seen from anyone. Look, I am all for public playtesting. When I publish my own TTRPG book, I plan for extensive public playtesting. But this isn't playtesting, this is a humiliation ritual. Now, with all the pushback being levied, the team themselves did have some defenses. I think anyone coming into this expecting it to be an exclusive mirror performing dailies on the site is going to be a bit disappointed. We've been very clear from the offset that this was designed from day one to be set within the lore world of Neopets, where the Neopets are people and not animals owned by humans. The campaign book is an adaptation of the Fairy Ruins plot. I cannot imagine a way you could build a campaign around fairyland failing and an invasion of monsters where significant gameplay is just exclusively fishing and picking berries. This is not to say you can't do these things. The campaign book's drafts include mechanics for deserted fairgrounds games, for example. But sometimes people fight Neopia, and as a beta test, we need to know if mechanics we come up with work around tables in the wild. Again, showing off some of that amateurishness, beta test implies that you are at least a little bit close to feature complete. This is not the time to be testing if your general mechanics, you know, work. But also, that post received a lot of pushback because it seems like this guy just straight up doesn't understand the vibe of Neopets. I mean, they give the excuse that, oh, this is based around the Fairy Ruins, that's the module, but look, if your module is going to make my Neopet going around slaying their enemies en masse like just another generic D&D game, then I don't know, brother. Maybe you should just change the module to something else and make the cozy game that people were clearly excited for, especially since the Kickstarter went out of its way to advertise many non-lethal pacifist minigame mechanics, dude. One tiny section of this beta being dedicated to one fairground of minigames does not really match that vibe. But with all that being said, the combat focus of this Neopets TTRPG was not the only time they missed the vibe of Neopets. Okay, so this next section is definitely going to ruffle some feathers. I want to open with some clarifications. For starters, I understand that the content we are going to be talking about here is very normal in something like Call of Cthulhu or Vampire the Masquerade. But keep in mind that those games are games almost exclusively meant to be played by older teens and adults. I also want to add that I understand most people playing this game are not going to be kids. They're going to be nostalgic adults who want to re-experience the world of Neopets in a new format. However, I also want to point out that what I've seen from Neopets adults, these people are nostalgic for that childhood vibe. They don't need Neopets to be aged up to their standards. They like how childish it is. That is the inherent appeal. In any case, with all that being clarified, let's move on to the big problems that Neopians saw when they looked at this doc. For starters, pet sex. We're starting off with a good one, baby! There's a section of the Neopets TTRPG book where the developers go over a session 0, and this is great. Especially in a game where children might be present, you're going to want to set expectations for the kind of game that you're going to be playing. Expectations on the kind of skill level that's going to be required. Expectations on whether player character death is going to occur. There are plenty of things that you could talk about in a session 0. However, for the Neopets TTRPG, the Session 0 chapter exclusively covers when to fade to black when sex happens. Which, okay, look. I understand there's going to be a lot of people who are very angry at me for laughing at this. Whenever I laugh at anything, even remotely sex-related, people jump into my comments to call me a pearl clutcher. And look, guys, I'm sorry. That's not the case. I'm not that. My asexual ass just finds stuff like this kind of funny. And yes, in games, especially ones with teens and adults, probably going to want to talk about whether or not romance is going to be okay at your table. And hell, even in a game with kids, it's probably a topic that is worth addressing. But directly saying how you're going to fade to black during romantic and sexual encounters, yeah, that's a little bit of a weird inclusion for a Neopets book, a book based in the game for 10-year-olds. Also, on top of that, I don't even know why they bothered to include this at all. As a Session 0 checklist, this is practically useless. It goes over no useful information for the game besides just sex. The fact the development team decided to focus exclusively on sex and romance means, to me at least, that they seemingly learned about Session 0 exclusively from watching my RPG horror story videos or something. Jesus Christ. Moving on from that, I think I have an explanation as to why they at least didn't include torture in their Session 0 checklist, because torture is just a canonical part of the Neopets experience, baby. When you are playing through the little mini module they included in the adventure, your Neopians are ambushed by a group of murderous bandits looking to take all your stuff. I know that this sounds like something that's ripped straight out of a Dungeons & Dragons game and not from the cozy Neopet minigame collection, but you know what? To each their own. Violence is the way. And apparently, lethal violence is the way in Neopia. Depending on who is alive at the end of the encounter, information can be coerced from them. Now, some people took coerced as meaning, you know, torture. I do think that might be a little bit extreme, given that the next line clarifies that you're using intimidation and persuasion, but I just want to focus on the other part of that sentence instead of the coercion. You know, the part where it assumes your Neopets are leaving corpses on the road. My God. But baby, this section of the book is just the gift that keeps on giving. In one fell swoop, this team has canonized possible torture, and use of lethal force in Neopia. Great, but don't worry, it gets so much worse because this is the gift that keeps on giving. He's still intoxicated and may not fully understand what's going on, especially if someone has died. Now, if you don't think this one section of the book can get any more embarrassing, don't worry. They tossed canon homophobia into the Neopets universe just one paragraph down. One of the bandits will say that if the boss is as scary as the rest of the crew says he is, he probably wouldn't be caught dead wearing a bracelet that's so feminine, regardless of what it can do. Yes, tossing in a little bit of misogyny in there too. I like that. Now look, I don't really believe that this is some underground homophobic effort to coerce Neopets fans into hating the gays. I just think that a particularly stupid piece of development team decided that this was a good idea and just didn't think twice about the implications of this part of the book. But this is why you have a team, including maybe somebody who will look through the book and make sure that this kind of content doesn't get through. Because yeah, this was a really, really bad look for the team over at Geekify, especially since, according to the actual Neopets team, none of this was ran by them. We want to be transparent with the community. The beta playtest document that was recently made public was not approved or reviewed by our team prior to its release. Under our licensing agreements, all content bearing the Neopets name must meet our quality standards and receive our written approval before it is shared publicly. Following an internal review, Neopets has determined the content themes contained within the document do not align with our brand standards, values, or the expectations we hold for experiences created under the Neopets license. Although the Neopets team has steadily been reviewing the TTRPG in sections as it is submitted, none of the aforementioned submissions was included in the beta document material release. We immediately requested the document's removal. We've been in direct communication with Geekify to address the matter. And by requested removal, that's their conservative way of saying we told them to remove that thing or else, because this document went down immediately after that statement was posted. So yeah, it's clear that Neopets was pissed. I wonder why. I mean, the team at Geekify did such a great job. Anyway, with all that being said, who the hell is Geekify anyway? Legal glasses time. I am not accusing Geekify nor its CEO of any legal wrongdoing. All the accounts I'm about to share come from alleged contractors and or employees. I have no way of verifying their role in the company or if they were even part of the company at all, nor do I have a way to verify their claims. Even if these claims were true, it is unlikely they would constitute any legal wrongdoing on the part of Geekify. Once again, I am not accusing Geekify nor its CEO of any legal wrongdoing. I am simply sharing the accounts of alleged employees as well as my own opinions. Okay? Okay. I can't verify the identity of these people. For all I know, all these team members could all be the same person alleging the same problems. I am comfortable speaking to my own experience here. I have been paid exactly once for what is now 5 consecutive months of editing and mechanical design, and there's at least that much work left to be done, if not more, to create a functioning system. Fuck it, $400, just one time. They had a public fight in the Discord for everyone to see, a fight that ended with this developer being removed from the team. Looks like this is going to be a regular occurrence. We have another allegation, this one posted to YouTube, from the YouTuber Manaflood, who claimed to be an ex-member of the Neopets team.
I joined the Geekify Neopets tabletop RPG project in or around 2022 following a call for applicants shared within the Neopets community. I think it was on Facebook, if I remember correctly, when I originally applied.
Like the rest, I cannot verify Manaflood's identity. He could be connected to the aforementioned parties, who could just be faking everything. But based on the internal screenshots that he posted, yeah, it's extremely likely that this guy is a member of the team. His allegations are serious, and he goes in depth about all the problems with this project. Not just non-payment, but also lack of management in general. Looks like John here, on top of being a little bit suspect on paying his people, he also wasn't even leading them in the first place.
From my perspective, the team often floundered, discussions looped without resolution, and some disagreements lingered without direction or, kind of trying to rein in what we should do there. and there was a consistent tendency to talk around problems rather than decisively address them. This lack of organization and leadership made it difficult for us to understand priorities, timelines, or expectations, and it significantly slowed all real progress.
That is crazy. During the video, you might have noticed that Mana Flood here posts screenshots of internal playtest documents made by the various members of the Neopets team. All these documents have wildly different templates and formatting. I guess John just thought, yup, I'll paste them all together somehow, some way. He didn't even have a design guideline. This is an unhinged style of leadership, but it does get worse because Mana Flood also alleges workplace toxicity.
During a meeting with, I think, almost all of the team and John there, a team member became openly hostile, stated that they would not allow themselves or others to be trampled over by a straight cis white male. I was personally kind of taken aback by the statement because I didn't really expect that was just what was said in a group in front of a bunch of people, but it was said. And the entire meeting went super silent. Besides being inappropriate and irrelevant to the discussion or any discussion in a meeting, really should be handled privately, it was also factually incorrect. Not that my identity or personal preferences or sexuality or anything matters in a professional setting.
Once again, I can't even verify this guy's identity, let alone verifying if this story actually took place. But if it did, that is extremely bad. Even if Mana Flood was in the wrong, even if he was the big, bad, scary, straight, cis, white male, which, once again, according to Mana Flood, that's not even true. But even if it was true, and even if he was being an asshole, okay, that's a situation that needs to be directly addressed by Geekify. According to Mana Flood, Geekify just let it quietly go and moved on. He wasn't like kicked out of the team, he just didn't receive a contract. A very passive way to handle workplace toxicity in your group. And speaking of contracts, yeah, that's another problem that Mana Flood brings up. I mean, if you thought the $400 of payment for 5 months of work was bad earlier, at least that guy got paid something.
I was never formally compensated for the work, time, or effort I made into the project, which personally is fine by me because at that point no one had been compensated for it. But right up until the point where the contracts come out, I don't get a contract, everybody else gets a contract, even if it's only a couple $100, which I understand times 10 or 12 people is a lot of money. But to cut it right at that point and not give me access to money, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not trying to say I was never paid for anything, but I wasn't. And I never got a contract, so I basically just worked on a bunch of stuff and then got cut. Woohoo.
I cannot imagine having someone do months of work for zero pay. To me, it shows that Geekify is perfectly willing to take advantage of naive or young people who aren't experienced in how contract works and don't know how much they should be paid for the work that they are doing. This very much reminds me of the business model of Evermore Park, a theme park out of Utah that exploited young actors to an insane degree by allegedly demanding they do lots of volunteer work to be part of the experience of Evermore. Just like Evermore, Geekify is telling these young people, hey, we're gonna pay you a little bit, but again, these are all allegations. I cannot verify that they are true. I'm just saying that it's something I've seen before, especially in the indie nerd space. It sucks, it's disgusting. But that being said, the final major allegation that is posted by Mana Flood is that this game was never ready. I mean, we already heard that from the aforementioned Discord argument, but Mana Flood alleges that it was never even close to a state where they would be submitting it for review to Neopets. I mean, he gave little sections, but that's it.
I believe it's important for Geekify and everyone in general to just be honest about internal realities. During the approximate 9 to 12 months that I was involved, the work was never close to for submission in any meaningful sense. No professional document I would have let out to go to Neopets to say, hey, here's what we're looking on, because it never looked like anything. It never looked like anything cohesive that you'd want to show them and say, hey, here's where we're at, because it wasn't. It was just mostly sketches and concepts and everyone's different ideas. We didn't have anything yet.
This whole thing, this guy's telling the truth. It's a disaster. Neopets released another statement containing a lot of the same material that we saw earlier, but they did clarify that they're hopeful about their future with Geekify. We believe there is a fantastic Neopets TTRPG waiting to be made, one that captures the magic of exploring Neopia, that gives you the freedom to adventure across all the lands you know and love, while honoring the unique qualities of the Neopets world. We are focused on taking the time needed to ensure the project reaches that potential. We will continue to keep you updated as the situation progresses. In the meantime, we genuinely appreciate your feedback, your candor, and most of all, your love for Neopets. Well, that hope aged rather badly because the Neopets team soon announced that they were stripping Geekify of the license, effectively canceling the Neopets TTRPG. To our Neopets community, we want to share an update regarding our partnership with Geekify Inc. After careful consideration, we made the decision to terminate our license agreement with Geekify effective immediately. Over the years, Geekify has helped bring a variety of licensed Neopets products to life from our community. We appreciate the creativity and effort that went into developing these releases, and we are grateful for the fans that supported them. As part of our commitment to providing quality Neopets experiences, we regularly review our licensing partnerships to ensure they align with our long-term goals and the standards we set for official Neopets licensed merchandise and experimental projects. We determined that it's for the best interest of the Neopets brand and our community to cease this specific project and ongoing license agreement. We wish the best for Geekify Inc. as we both continue to grow and evolve separately. Yeah, that is a very, very definitive statement. They did not want to work with Geekify anymore. And there were mostly positive reactions to this. Most fans understood, but there were other fans that were mad at Neopets for this decision. Look, I get it. Apparently, Neopets team have made a lot of controversial calls in the past, so I understand not really trusting them. But at the same time, at least here, I understand this move. Geekify were in hot water. I mean, not only was the game bad, not only was the game borderline copyright infringing, not only did the game not fit within the Neopets brand, but on top of all that, there are allegations of workplace toxicity and payment problems with their contractors. That is just not a position that you want to be in as a brand. You want to separate from them immediately. I also want to clarify that legally, it's not on Neopets to pay out backers for this Kickstarter. Hell, legally, it's not even on Geekify to pay out the backers. A Kickstarter is effectively a donation, even if it shouldn't be. That is unfortunately how it works. Though if you do want to bother anyone for a refund, you should definitely bother Geekify. I mean, if you buy a Ubisoft Star Wars game and it sucks, bother Ubisoft. Disney are definitely not going to give you your money. But with that being said, how did Geekify react to the Neopets firing? Well, he expressed that he was very disappointed and also claimed that this was extremely sudden and claimed that it was a bad decision on the part of Neopets. He accepts very little responsibility for how this project went and even claims they had so much amazing original content behind the scenes. Given that they published all of their rip-off content on a poorly formatted Google Doc, I have no idea what was stopping him and his team from putting this original content on the Google Doc itself. My God. This was a terrible, terrible showing. But there is hope on the horizon because, by complete coincidence, I'm sure, Ghostfire Gaming, an extremely, extremely popular third-party TTRPG brand behind some of the greatest grimdark projects in the TTRPG space, they are now inexplicably making a Neopets tabletop experience. Wow, they are really, really expanding their brand with this one. And honestly, I respect the hell out of it. Ghostfire Gaming is awesome, and if Neopets wants someone experienced to make a good game for them, Ghostfire is a great, great pick. Again, I have no idea if Ghostfire was picked because of stuff falling through with Geekify. It could literally just be a coincidence. I'm just saying, the timing is utterly hilarious. With all that being said, though, is there even a takeaway from all this? Guys, of course there's a takeaway. I have takeaways from freaking lol cow stories. I can get a takeaway from this. Look, at the core of it, I think there's a misconception around the development of tabletop role-playing games. A misconception that I once had, and that misconception is that this is easy. It's easy to make a TTRPG, and sure, making a TTRPG is definitely easier than making like a AAA video game, But claiming that this is like simple stuff is no, absolutely not. In fact, there are difficulties exclusive to this form of game design that you are going to need to overcome, and that is going to require experience and practice and effort. I have been doing D&D homebrew and now Draw Steel homebrew for as long as these games have been around, and I still am learning a lot. I go back to stat blocks I made even a month ago and spot tons of errors as I continue to refine my skills. You can't just make a TTRPG casually. You do need to put effort into it to make something that's worth it for your customers to buy. I'm saying this because I see plenty of projects that are made by influencers who are only known for occasionally popping up on actual play with a celebrity DM. You know the type that I'm talking about, that LA crowd that talk about D&D a lot, but don't make a lot of content for the game and certainly aren't developing much for the game. Some of them turn out rather badly, and I think it's because these people go into this thinking it's going to be easy. As seen with the Neopets TTRPG, it most certainly is not. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this little tale, a little bit less personal than the lolcow content I've been making recently, and frankly, I'm grateful for the break. With all that being said, if you want to let me know that you were loyal to the tavern, then head down in the comments down below and leave the comment, "Sir, this is Neopets," so I'm to the end of the video. Also, if you want to check out more of our content, then check out this other episode where we covered the Lego Smart Brick. It's linked up in the cards, but before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you miss every our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to support us directly, head over to our Patreon or buy our merch, stuff like that makes these videos possible. And that's like, comment, subscribe, support. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.